During the 2016 State of the Union address, President Obama spoke of his economic record.
Even when they have jobs, even when the economy is growing, it's made it harder for a hard-working family to pull itself out of poverty, harder for young people to start their careers, tougher for workers to retire when they want to. And although none of these trends are unique to America, they do offend our uniquely American belief that everybody who works hard should get a fair shot. For the past 7 years, our goal has been a growing economy that also works better for everybody. We've made progress, but we need to make more.
The rate of real economic growth is the single greatest determinant of both America's strength as a nation and the well-being of the American people. Gross domestic product is the monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. Assuming 2.67% GDP for 2016, Obama's average during his tenure will be 1.55%, and will place him fourth from last of all U.S. presidents. While the unemployment rate has dropped to around 5%, this number is misleading. There are now 94.3 million Americans outside the labor force, an increase of nearly 14 million people since President Obama took office. 1 in 5 American households do not have a single member in the labor force. Home ownership is at its lowest rate in 51 years. Nearly 12 million have been added to the food stamp rolls during the Obama presidency, and another nearly 7 million Americans were added to the ranks of those in poverty. Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State for the first 4 years of Obama's administration and has expressed support of his policies and actions.
Both my husband and President Obama created more opportunity coming from a lower base because they believed fundamentally that real and lasting prosperity must be built by all and shared by all.
Paradoxically, she feels frustration that after 8 years with a Democratic administration, nothing is getting done.
And how can you not be frustrated and even angry when you see nothing getting done? And a lot of people feel no one is on their side and no one has their back. And that is not how it's supposed to be in America.
Clinton believes that part of the solution should be massive public works programs.
We will put Americans to work building and modernizing our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our railways, our ports, our airports. We are way overdue for this, my friends. We are living off the investments that were made by our parents and grandparents' generations.
But why do we need to do this? At the start of his administration, President Obama passed the American Recovery Act that included $800 billion for the repair and replacement of America's decaying infrastructure. He claimed that the construction jobs would provide a stimulus to the economy. He said the projects were shovel-ready and only needed Congress to appropriate the money. 2 years later, he admitted,
shovel-ready was not as shovel-ready as we expected.
Many economists say that large public works programs do not stimulate the economy because they take money from businesses who would have used it to expand and create new jobs. The sluggish economy during Obama's administration seems to support that view. Donald Trump proposes across-the-board tax cuts and reduction of regulations.
The United States also has the highest business tax rate among the major industrialized nations of the world at 35%. It's almost 40% when you add in taxes at the state level, and in many cases and many states, it's much higher than that. In other words, we punish companies for making products in America, but let them ship products into the United States tax-free if they move overseas. This, ladies and gentlemen, is backwards. This is backwards. All of our policies should be geared toward keeping jobs and wealth inside of the United States. Under my plan, no American company will pay more than 15% of their business income in taxes. In other words, we're reducing your taxes from 35% to 15%. Thank you. Thank you. Small businesses will benefit the most from this plan. Hillary Clinton's plan will require small business to pay as much as 3 times more in taxes than what I'm proposing. And her onerous regulations will put them totally out of business, and you won't be able to start. You cannot ever start a small business under the tremendous regulatory burden that you have today in our country. I'm going to end it. I am going to cut regulations massively. Massively. Our lower business tax will also end job-killing corporate inversions and cause trillions in new dollars and wealth to come pouring into our country. And, by the way, into cities like right here in Detroit. To help unleash this new job creation, we will allow businesses to immediately expense new business investments. No one will gain more from these proposals than low and middle income Americans.
Democrats claim that cutting taxes will reduce revenues to the government and increase the deficit. But the opposite occurred with John F. Kennedy's tax cuts in the 1960s and Ronald Reagan's cuts in the 1980s. In both cases, tax revenues climbed, Kennedy by 28% and Reagan 33% when adjusted for inflation. Why? Because the tax cuts stimulated investment, created business expansion, and added millions of new jobs. Mrs. Clinton, on the other hand, proposes adding additional taxes.
We should also add a new tax on multimillionaires, crack down on tax gaming by corporations, and close the carried interest loophole, something I've advocated for years. Now, Trump would roll back the tough rules that we have imposed on the financial industry. I'll do the opposite. I think we should strengthen those rules so Wall Street can never wreck Main Street again.
Of course, she doesn't mention that she has taken large donations from the evil big banks, nor that the 2008 recession was really the result of the Community Reinvestment Act, a Democrat program implemented by President Jimmy Carter and expanded by President Bill Clinton that forced banks to lower their lending criteria and take on risky loans. And she wants to add even more regulations to the tens of thousands already added by the Obama administration. The Affordable Care Act has made health care anything but affordable, except to the very poor, whose care is subsidized. Instead of health care premiums being reduced by $2,500 per year, we have seen increases of 30 to 50%. Several large insurance carriers have pulled out of the program, and many of the state exchanges are in severe financial crisis. And Obamacare has had a negative impact on the economy by causing a reduction of full-time jobs. But Mrs. Clinton is prepared to double down on the program.
The Democratic Party in the United States worked since Harry Truman to get the Affordable Care Act passed. We have a path to universal health care. We've accomplished so much already. I do not want to see the Republicans repeal it, and I don't want to see us start over again with a contentious debate. I want us to defend and build on the Affordable Care Act and improve it.
Donald Trump has a different take.
One of my first acts as president will be to repeal and replace disastrous Obamacare, saving another 2 million American jobs.
Historically, the African American community has loyally supported the Democratic Party. And at every election, Democratic candidates make promises to help those communities.
That's why I've called for reviving the new markets tax credit and empowerment zones to create greater incentives to invest in poor and remote areas.
But the democratically controlled inner cities continue to decay, with African American unemployment almost double the rate for whites. And the rate is much worse for African American youths.
No group in America has been more harmed by Hillary Clinton's policies than African Americans. No group. No group. If Hillary Clinton's goal was to inflict pain on the African American community, she could not have done a better job. It's a disgrace. Tonight, I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country who wants to see a better future. The inner cities of our country have been run by the Democratic Party for more than 50 years. Their policies have produced only poverty, joblessness, failing schools, and broken homes. It's time to hold Democratic politicians accountable for what they have done to these communities. At what point do we say enough?
Donald Trump believes that America needs new leadership and new solutions.
So we can't solve our problems if we're going to just go back and rely on these politicians, because that's what we've been doing. Only by changing to new leadership and new solutions will we get new and great results. We need to stop believing in politicians and start believing in our great country. Before everything great that has happened, the doubters have always said, it couldn't be done. They say it right now. It couldn't be done. America is ready to prove the doubters wrong. They want you to think small. I am asking you to think big. We are ready to dream great things for our country once again. We are ready to show the world that America is back, bigger and better and stronger than ever before. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.